Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 55 based on novel. So let's start. With a roar, three figures suddenly collided on the void. Immediately after that, two of them retreated 10 steps respectively. On the contrary, the other figure stepped back 100 steps in the void. At a glance, these three figures are old whose strange Yang Bing and the Mo Zhai who retreated suddenly. Unexpectedly, the three united front guys would fight each other at this moment. However, when people in public looked at the stone platform below the three people, a pale and thin old man was sitting on the stone platform and slowly recovering. Look at it, it's Mo Zhai. It's just an imperial pill. Even if you become more like a person, you will inevitably be swallowed. It's stupid to want to struggle more in front of me. Above the void, Hu Laoge glanced at Yang Bing on one side, then his eyes fell on the figure who looked the same as Mo Zhai hundreds of feet away, and his mouth also gave a disdainful sneer. The Mo Zhai in front of him was made from the imperial pill Shumi pill. At the moment, his strength was quite extraordinary. With all his strength, Hu Laoge and who couldn't control it immediately. It's not that the two can't fight it. At the moment, the strength of Zumiton is at most 3-star semi-emperor. It's not easy to be comparable with Mo Zhai at the peak, but it's impossible to fight against Hu Larogui and Hu Larogui. If it weren't for the fact that the essence of this medicine was a pill, they were afraid to hurt the essence of the pill when they started, otherwise they would have taken it down by force, so why do they have to do it together? All they have to do now is to exhaust the strength of this Zumiton. When the time is ripe, they will immediately take it. At the moment, Hu Laoge's words were heard in his ears, worried in his heart, and in terms of strength, he was definitely not the opponent of any of the two in front of him. If he dragged on like this, he would have to be accepted by them and return to his essence for others to take. At the thought of this, he immediately felt unwilling. Since he couldn't fight, it was a big deal to escape. As long as he could escape into the city below and hide his breath carefully, I'm afraid it would be difficult to detect with the strength of these two people. When he thought of doing it, the Mo Zhai was suddenly cold and moved. He slapped at the head of old Hu Monster, but the latter smiled coldly and didn't dodge. Unexpectedly, he was waiting for the arrival of the former. Boom! With a roar, the fierce vigorous wind swept away in an instant. The palm of the Mo Zhai was stubbornly stopped in front of the old monster who and could no longer save a penny. Okay, yes, this blow is also brave. In that case, it's my turn. With a sneer, old Hu's fierce palm poked out, and one hand grabbed it towards the throat of Mo Zhai. He wanted to take one hand off, and the latter's face changed sharply at this moment. Before the palm grabbed it, his body suddenly released a dazzling milky light. Shua! Hu Laoge grabbed it with one hand, but the place he started was suddenly empty. The Mo Zhai in front of him suddenly changed back to the body, turned into a light, and shot into the wild ancient city below. Seeing that Zumiton wanted to escape, old Hu suddenly gave a cold hum, and Yang Bing, who was on the side, stared at Zumiton indifferently. His eyes twinkled slightly, hesitated, and quickly caught up. Drink. It's just a pill. I see where you can hide. With a cold drink, the old Hu monster suddenly accelerated, and grabbed the Zumiton with one claw. The distance between the two was also suddenly close in this moment. Boom! At the critical moment, the Zumiton turned into Yang Bing in an instant, and the white palm suddenly burst out towards the old monster Hu. As soon as Hu Laoge saw Yang Bing, his complexion changed greatly. He knew exactly what Yang Bing's strength was. At the moment, no matter whether Yang Bing was opposite or not, he was already fighting with all his strength. The fighting spirit in his body poured out madly, and a claw was blasted with him. Bang! However, the result is a little different. Hu Laoge's full palm immediately crushed the oncoming palm. At the moment, Hu Laoge also suddenly reacted. The Yang Bing in front of him is false. But even if the response was timely, it was too late after all. Although this all-out blow exhausted the power of Zumiton and made him disappear into the body again, it also made him disappear into the sight of old Hu monster, which was barely escaped. Hiss! However, in the next moment, the spiritual knowledge in the Zumiton dispersed in an instant. A white palm full of frost also fell and grasped it in the palm. It's Yang Bing. Although this Zumiton has some calculations, how can he escape Yang Bing's sophisticated calculation and Hu Laoge, but he can't escape Yang Bing's palm. On the void, Hu Laoge's figure stopped slowly. Looking at Yang Bing who seemed to win and return, the bottom of his eyes flashed a faint light again, but he didn't say much. He looked more at Yang Bing's frosty palm, and his eyes couldn't help moving. Immediately, his figure flashed and returned to Mojai. Bang! Just at this time, there was another bang on the just silent void square, and the people looked again. On the void, a turquoise pill flew out in an instant. Ignoring the surprised eyes around them, they flew away towards the crowd below. With a lesson from the past, this imperial robbery pill, unexpectedly, chose to escape directly at the moment of coming out. It's really straightforward. Seeing this, Mojai suddenly showed a mocking smile. The rock owl was still sitting in front of the medicine tripod. No matter the pill escaped, even the puppet next to him was motionless. I really thought that the imperial pill would come back again. At this moment, Jiu Li and Red Phosphorus changed their faces again. Although they wanted to help, they had a special identity. As judges, they couldn't do it. They could only watch the Emperor robbery pill shoot into the city below. On the stand, seeing that his face changed slightly and his body moved, old Xian wanted to rush towards the Emperor robbery pill and wanted to help Xiao Yang stop it. Xianlao had just started, but Luo Jin on one side grabbed him, shook his head and motioned to Xianlao. Then he gently pointed to Xiao Yang with a calm face under his chin, a look of playfulness appeared in his eyes, and then opened his mouth and said with a smile, "Let's see again." He should be sure that the Emperor robbed Dan can't run away. The voice fell, the lower eyes closed slightly, and Xiao Yang, who was slowly recovering his fighting spirit, slowly opened his eyes at the moment, and the corners of his mouth also gradually aroused a sneer. "Oh, can you run?" When Xiao Yang sneered, the wild ancient city below suddenly burst into flames. Everyone in the whole wild ancient city saw the imperial pill fall into the city with their own eyes. How could these masters be willing to take such a great opportunity? Although this imperial pill is refined by Xiao Yang and belongs to Xiao Yang, now that it has fallen into the city, how can these ordinary strong people be indifferent as long as they have a chance to succeed? If Xiao Yang Gui is a powerful man, these guys naturally dare not touch what belongs to Xiao Yang, but now the situation is quite different. It was the imperial pill that fell into the city just now. Imperial pill, as long as any one of these people can have the opportunity to swallow it, then their strength can be greatly improved in an instant. It can't be said that as long as his strength breaks through to the semi-emperor level in a short time with the help of pill, even if Xiao Yang has extraordinary strength, he is unable to do what he wants at the moment. As long as he can escape from the wild ancient city as soon as possible, he will not be able to become a peerless strong man from now on. How can they let go of such a good thing that has ascended to the sky? Therefore, before the Emperor robbed Dan fell into the city, the whole wild ancient city was completely boiling. Previously, someone stopped the Sumitan and they didn't dare to do it, but now, the Emperor robbed the pill is equivalent to an ownerless thing. How can they hesitate again? At that time, the crowd rushed into the sky like waves, and frantically grabbed and rushed at the falling imperial robbery pill. "Drink. I'm going to decide this imperial pill. Who dares to argue with me? When I swallow it, my accomplishments will soar, and I will kill it myself in the future." Boom. Before the words fell, the old man had exploded into a blood mist, which made the chaotic people around him suddenly quiet. At a glance, the old man who shot was actually an 8-star saint. You dare to talk in front of me with such strength? You really don't know how to live or die. How can you waste people get the imperial pill? Get away from me if you don't want to die. Otherwise, I'll slap him to death. As soon as the old man's voice fell, the terrorist pressure belonging to the 8-star saint was swept away in an instant, making everyone on the void suddenly change their complexion, and their body shape quickly regressed. I was afraid that they would be kicked out by the old man and end up the same as the old man just now. Hihi, although the strength is not very good, it's a good word. The Emperor's pill can't be seen by a mere doshing like you. The old man just calmed down the chaotic scene, but then, a more terrible pressure suddenly came to his head. When the old man noticed the pressure, his face changed sharply, because the owner of the pressure would be a semi-imperialist. Unexpectedly, the temptation of the imperial pill made the semi-imperial strong crazy. As soon as the semi-emperor strong man appeared, those people above the void immediately dispelled their thoughts. In front of the semi-emperor strong man, they didn't even have a chance to fight. It's not worth fighting for an imperial pill with him. Seeing that the people stopped talking, the semi-emperor strong man couldn't help but arouse a sneer. Obviously, he enjoyed the feeling of being feared by thousands of people. Then he didn't hesitate and moved, so he hurried to catch up with the Emperor robbery pill. At the moment, on the void square, Xiao Yang finally had an action. The thought moved. The slightly recovered soul power in the center of Xiao Yang's eyebrows poured out in an instant and spread rapidly in the city below. However, in an instant, The Emperor Robbery Pill appeared again under Xiao Yang's soul exploration. Xiao Yang also frowned slightly at the semi-imperial strongman who was chasing the Imperial Robbery Pill, and suddenly felt a sense of disgust and disdain. It was obvious that the semi-imperial strongman had just advanced, but he wanted to improve his strength by swallowing imperial pills. This was basically a way of rebellious cultivation, but in a moment, Xiao Yang smiled coldly, a flash of light flashed in his eyes, and he sneered in his heart. Well, since you want this Imperial Robbery Pill so much, let you take it. Suddenly, Xiao Yang moved his hands together, raised his fighting spirit quickly, and his fingertips changed rapidly like playing the piano. Cumbersome printing formulas were also formed in Xiao Yang's hands. Yes. When he ordered to drink, in the lower city, the Imperial Robbery Pill that was rapidly plundering seemed to be under some control. The pill that was rapidly plundering was suddenly set in the void, and the semi-imperial strongman who immediately followed him was also overjoyed. Without hesitation, he grabbed it towards the Imperial Robbery Pill. Bang! At the next moment, when the half-emperor strongman was about to grasp the Emperor Dan, the Emperor Robbery Dan suddenly shone brightly, and then turned into a figure just like Xiao Yang. With one hand, he grabbed the palm of his hand and 5 fingers, and the claws of the half-emperor strongman were like chicken claws. All the bones under the skin were crushed in an instant, and blood gushed out in an instant, dripping down the palm of your hand. The palm was badly hurt, which also made the semi-emperor strongman burst out a miserable howl. In panic, the whole arm couldn't help twitching, so he wanted to forcibly pull back the controlled palm. But the man in front of him gave a sneer. The cold killing intention suddenly appeared in the green eye pupil. He grabbed the 5 fingers of the palm and made another effort, and the wrist folded upward. With a tragic howl, the palm of the half-emperor was broken from the wrist. But it's not over yet. Xiao Yang, who was transformed by Emperor Jedan, made a sudden effort to hold the palm of his hand and flew the semi-emperor strong man from the air. As soon as he loosened his hand and grabbed it at the elbow of the semi-emperor strong man, his arms suddenly twisted. Click! A sound of bone fracture came out, and then the next moment, the whole arm of the semi-imperialist was forcibly broken from that joint. A scream, not waiting for the strong half-emperor to respond, but Xiao Yang shot again. Holding the broken arm in his hand, Xiao Yang's killing intention suddenly surged in his eyes. His palm circled and stabbed the broken arm fiercely towards the semi-emperor strongman. The broken arm, in the hands of this Xiao Yang, was like a sharp sword. It instantly pierced the chest of the semi-emperor strongman, and then kicked out, kicking the semi-emperor strongman out. After doing this, Xiao Yang still didn't dare to be careless. He ignored the 1.5-star emperor who had been kicked out. His green eyes slowly raised, and his eyes looked at the void square with fear. Xiao Yang was sitting in front of the beast tripod. With a cold hum, Xiao Yang moved, then swept up the sky again, stood not far behind Xiao Yang, stared at Xiao Yang. His face was also dignified, and his heart seemed to be struggling. Above the void, Mo Zhai and others frowned when they saw this scene. The Emperor robbed Dan clearly had a chance to escape. How did he fly back? Oh, why don't you run? Although this guy is standing behind him, Xiao Yang is not worried that he will attack secretly. The strength of the North King is enough to frighten him, and, even if the North King is not present, he can't move Xiao Yang. When the Emperor robbed Dan heard the speech, he also sneered again. His eyes paused on the North King beside Xiao Yang. Then his eyes looked around again, his palm slowly raised, his index finger stretched out, and slowly stretched out towards the void in front of him. Hiss! Suddenly, when the slender finger stretched out to a certain distance, there was a hiss in the void, and a circle of gorgeous different fire rose up in an instant, surrounding the Imperial Robbery Pill, which made the Imperial Robbery Pill quickly take back the finger. With the control of this thing, I really can't run if I want to run. This was added to me before Cheng Dan. Xiao Yang didn't answer this. It doesn't matter whether it was before or after. The important thing is that as long as Xiao Yang doesn't want to rob the pill, he will never get out of Xiao Yang's palm. At the moment, on the stand, Luo Jin's Xuanlao's eyes have been staring at the strange fire around the body of the Emperor robbing Dan again. Their hearts are full of horror. This time, he took out the secret skill of Dantar. Huadan Ring. Who is this rock owl? On the stand, Shenlaro and Luo Jin looked at each other slowly, and their eyes were full of horror. Xiao Yang in front of them really broke their cognition again and again. First, the strange fire, then the terrible fighting skill, the only skill of the Zhongyu family, the Imperial Seal formula, the enviable Tianding list medicine tripod, and now there is a secret skill of the Dantar Huadan Ring. These things, as long as they are taken out casually, will make the whole continent crazy. At present, these things actually exist in Xiao Yang. Therefore, it is inevitable that Luo Jin and others will doubt it. What is the identity of Xiao Yang in front of him? At this moment, Xiao Yang in the audience slowly stood up from the stone platform, turned his body, looked at the Emperor Robbery Pill, and a smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. Then his eyes turned to Mo Zhai on the other side. His eyes flashed. Xiao Yang and Mo Zhai looked at each other, and his chin was raised slightly. Xiao Yang smiled. "Champion, I want it." Xiao Yang's words came out in exchange for Mo Zhai's sneer. Although I don't know why the Emperor Robbery Pill would come back obediently, at least, at the moment, the Emperor Robbery Pill has not been subdued by Xiao Yang, but his Shumi Pill has been held in the palm of his hand. How to say, it's all his Mo Zhai's victory. How can Xiao Yang say such big words? With you, I can't take back the pills. What can I take to compete for the championship? Mo Zhai's dry palm slowly lifted up and spread out. A round pill was standing in the palm. With the palm spread out, a strong smell of pill also spread, making everyone feel comfortable. Imperial Pill is really extraordinary. Seeing that Mo Zhai seemed to show off his victory, Xiao Yang shook his head slowly, and then looked at the Emperor Robbery Pill again. At the moment, the Emperor Robbery Pill is still a human appearance almost the same as Xiao Yang. Although it looks dignified, it seems that he is unwilling to yield. Xiao Yang also smiled when he saw this. He was added by Huadan Ring. Unexpectedly, he was still thinking about how to get rid of himself. It's really possible for the Emperor to rob Dan. Why, I have to struggle hard. Do you want me to take you personally? Emperor Jedan's face changed again when he heard the speech. Although he didn't know what the things around him were, he could feel a terrible pressure from it. This pressure was not effective for everyone, but was specially used to suppress the elixir. In this way, his heart is more dignified and unimaginable. If Xiao Yang makes a move, he doesn't even have a chance to fight back. Unexpectedly, your means are so powerful. Since you want to accept me, even if you fight to explode, you will never accept it. With a cold hum, the Emperor Robbed Dan also made a decision. He knew that he was definitely not Xiao Yang's opponent. He moved suddenly, so he rushed towards Xiao Yanfei. At the same time, his palms were raised quickly, and the fingertip printing formula changed rapidly. He was really ready to die with Xiao Yang in the way of self-explosion. When Xiao Yang saw this, he couldn't help sneering. He showed a mocking smile on his face. He also raised his palm, played cumbersome printing tricks quickly, and shouted coldly, You still want to explode in front of me? Don't you think too much? The voice fell, and the yin formula in Xiao Yang's palm was suddenly frozen. At the same time, he suddenly burst into a voice. Huadan Shenju. Stop. With a cry, the gorgeous aperture around the body of the Imperial Robbery Pill quickly narrowed, and the Imperial Robbery Pill was forcibly taken back by Xiao Yang in the eyes of panic. Finally, when the aperture turned into a light mass, the Imperial Robbery Pill also recovered itself again, turned into a green pill the size of a longan, and flew into Xiao Yang's palm. Imperial Pill, Imperial Robbery Pill. At this moment, under the attention of the public, Xiao Yang only took a few seconds to recover the Imperial Robbery Pill and successfully put it into his hands. Such a scene shocked countless people. Like the Sumitan just now, it was taken by Hu Leoge and Yang Bing. Although it was not difficult, it also wasted their mental strength. But like Xiao Yang, it took only a few breaths to quickly take back an Imperial Pill. Moreover, the process seemed to be understated. It was not like Hu Leoge's hand at all. With this alone, Xiao Yang's ability, but had to make these onlookers feel amaze. Take the Emperor's Pill with you. These means can be called Tongshan. Feeling a faint afterglow from the pill in the palm of his hand, Xiao Yang slowly showed a sneer at the corners of his mouth, raised his palm, showed the Emperor Robbery Pill in his hand to the eyes of thousands of people, slowly swept the whole audience, looked at Jiu Li and them on the void, and then looked at Mo Zhai opposite. At the moment, Mo Zhai's dark old eyes also stared at Xiao Yang. He didn't expect that the Emperor Robbery Pill was so easily subdued by Xiao Yang. The secret skills Xiao Yang had just performed were unheard of by him, which made Mo Zhai's face turn gloomy for a time. What's up, Master Mo Zhai? Now I have the ability to compete with you. Xiao Yang looked at the gloomy Mo Zhai on the opposite face with a light smile. Holding the Emperor Robbery Pill in his palm, he slowly opened his mouth and smiled. Even if you accept the Imperial Robbery Pill, what can you do? My Zumitan was successfully refined long before you. Now you take out the Imperial Robbery Pill. It's too late. The champion is still my. Seeing the light smile on Xiao Yang's face, Mo Zhai couldn't help laughing at Xiao Yang immediately. Without paying too much attention to Xiao Yang, Mo Zhai directly focused on Jiyu Li and red phosphorus above the void. The body on the stone platform slowly flew into the void, facing Jiyu Li and them with a sneer. Two presidents, in your opinion, my Sumitan was successfully refined before Xiao Yang's imperial robbery pill. Therefore, needless to say, this champion should be my good one. Jiyu Li frowned when he heard the speech, but even if he stretched out again, he looked at each other with the red phosphorus on one side. Then he looked at Mo Zhai, turned his eyes and said with a smile. Indeed, according to this time, the title of champion is really good for Master Mo Zhai. Before Mo Zhai showed his joy, Jiyu Li sneered again and continued to say with a smile. But our herbalists can't make pills faster than who in the end. After all, if we just make a waste pill in terms of time, we can become a champion. As soon as Jiyu Li said this, everyone present nodded. The most important reason why herbalists are respected is the quality of their refined pills. Otherwise, only a part of tens of thousands of herbalists on the mainland would be known to the world. Indeed, Master Mo Zhai's Sumitan was successfully refined before the Rock Owl's imperial robbery pill, but the quality of these two pills also needs to be identified before we can comment on the title. With Jiyu Li's words, Mo Zhai could not help but frown slightly. Seeing the mysterious smile on Jiyu Li's face, Mo Zhai felt more and more uneasy in his heart. On the huge void square, the people scattered by the previous Danlei gathered here again, and their eyes were all looking at the figures in the middle of the square. In the middle of the square, Xiao Yang, Mo Zhai, and others stood impressively. All the strong players on the referee's bench were present. Everyone looked at Xiao Yang and Mo Zhai in the field. Under the attention of the public, Mo Zhai gave a cold hum between his nose. Then the palm under his sleeve robe was raised high, and his 5 fingers slowly extended. In the palm of his hand, a round pill was also exposed to the air. At the moment when the pill appeared, a strong smell of the pill spread. The strong fragrance of the pill shrouded around the pill like a fog, making the pill looming, unreal and mysterious. Tut. Is that Sumitan? It's really an imperial pill. If I can get it, my life will not be in vain. Hey, yeah, as long as we can get this imperial pill, we can create a semi-imperial strong man out of thin air among those people with less than half imperial strength. It's really exciting to think about it. Hearing the exclamation from the audience in the surrounding stands and the envious eyes projected from his eyes, Mo Zhai couldn't help laughing proudly at the moment. His sneering eyes slowly swept through the audience. Finally, he fell on Xiao Yang, and his arms extended straight to Xiao Yang. The pill in his palm also fell into Xiao Yang's eyes. Mo Zhai first looked at Xiao Yang, then his eyes fell on the Sumitan in his palm, and took a deep breath of the extremely rich Dan fragrance. Mo Zhai sneered at the corners of his mouth, and then said with a loud smile. Sumitan, imperial pill, its function is to greatly improve the user's strength in a short time. If the semi-imperial strong swallow it, it can improve the strength of 1 or 2 stars in a short time. Wow! As soon as Mo Zhai spoke, there was a loud voice of surprise in the field. Everyone looked fanatically at the Sumitan in Mo Zhai's palm at the moment. Even some semi-imperialist strong men showed greedy eyes to Mo Zhai at the moment. Although the effect of Sumitan is not to permanently improve the strength of users, it is enough to be exciting just to greatly improve their own strength in a short time. After all, for the strong at the level of semi-emperor, any slight deviation between the strength of both sides will lead to the final outcome of the battle. For example, a strong man at the 8-star-and-a-half emperor level like Jiyu Li, although his strength is in the middle of the 8-star-and-a-half emperor, if compared with Yang Bing at the same level, he is at 2 different levels. Yang Bing, who is at the peak of the late 8-star-and-a-half emperor, can completely suppress Jiyu Li in a 100 round. However, if Jiyu Li can swallow a Sumitan, Jiyu Li can instantly raise his strength to the level of 9-stars-and-a-half emperors in a short time. Although it is impossible to be promoted to the real fighting emperor level, according to this point, Jiyu Li can have the opportunity to win. In the face of the late peak of the 8-star-and-a-half emperor, although there is only 1 step difference between the two, the strong one at the 9-star-and-a-half emperor level is enough to beat Yang Bing at the late peak of the 8-star-and-a-half emperor. And this is the horror of Sumitan. It's a magic pill that can reverse the whole war situation. How can it not make people crazy? In that case, please ask Master Mo Zhai to bring the pill first and let me and others identify the quality of the pill. Hearing Mo Zhai's arrogant laughter, Jiyu Li smiled faintly, put his hands between his sleeves, looked at Mo Zhai with a sneer, and said softly, When Mo Zhai heard the speech, his face immediately showed dissatisfaction. As soon as his palm was closed, the pill was taken back under his sleeve robe, looked at Jiyu Li coldly, snorted coldly, and said in a rather dissatisfied tone, As a second-class herbalist, the imperial elixir refined by me is undoubtedly a pill. I need you to do more identification, but I can't do it. Jiyu Li smiled coldly when he heard the speech. Suddenly, he waved his big sleeve, and a magnificent momentum immediately spread. At the same time, he also drank coldly again, saying, Mo Zhai, you're really a second-class herbalist. It's good that no one will doubt the pills you refine. But please don't forget that there's a herbalist meeting now. During this period, you're just a contestant and I'm the referee. As long as the pills refined by the contestants, no matter how many levels of herbalists you are, you have to give them to me for identification. Why, Master Mo Zhai still wants to violate the rules of the conference. If so, please leave. The conference will directly sentence you to abstain. Hearing Jiyu Li's cold drink, Mo Zhai's face trembled. He just wanted to say something, but he was forced to block his mouth by Jiyu Li's threatening words, which made Mo Zhai even more angry. At the same time, Mo Zhai had nothing to do with Jiyu Li's pressure. In Jiyu Li's identity, if he didn't give the pill to him for identification, Jiyu Li can really give him a waiver, which is not worth it for Mo Zhai. Even if I show you, I can't change the fact that I'm a champion. With a cold Mo Zhai waved his palm, and the imperial elixir in his palm, Suemai Dan, turned into a streamer and flew straight to Jiyu Li, who Laoge, standing beside Mo Zhai, also looked at Jiyu Li with his eyes narrowed. However, in Hu Laoge's eyes, he flashed a trace of other thoughts about the Suemai Dan that flew away. Jiyu Li didn't dare to be careless when he saw the flying pill. After all, it was the Emperor's pill. He should face it well. When the Sumitan shot, the palm under Guli's sleeve robe suddenly raised, and an invisible soft force burst out in the palm, gently connecting the shot pill to the palm. At a glance, Jiyu Li's eyes were also slightly frozen. Although the Mo Zhai man was not very good, it had to be said that the Sumitan he refined was indeed a Chengdan. Moreover, looking at the quality and the surging energy inside, the Sumitan was also the best choice among Chengdan. After a careful exploration, Jiyu Li carefully transferred the Sumitan in his hand to the red phosphorus on the side. The Sumitan could not really come to a conclusion until it was identified by other drug refining masters of the jury. Therefore, Mo Zhai only took a more look at this point and didn't say anything. A moment later, when the Sumitan returned to Jiyu Li's hand again from the last medicine refining master, the people also looked at Jiyu Li curiously again. After all, no matter how good Mo Zhai said about the Sumitan, in the end, Jiyu Li had to give a comment on behalf of all the judges. At that time, the Sumitan, just now, it can really be regarded as a highly affirmed imperial pill. Under the attention of the crowd, Jiyu Li's eyes slowly swept through the audience and looked at the dark crowd on the stand. Jiyu Li's mouth also slowly showed a smile, and then his eyes fell on the opposite Mo Zhai. The two people looked at each other with 4 eyes, and Mo Zhai sneered. He had confidence in his own Sumaitan, because this Sumaitan was the highest quality of imperial elixir he had refined for so long. Therefore, Mo Zhai's heart would have an absolute assurance that he could surpass Xiao Yang. After a long time, everyone in the audience was completely silent. When the whole audience was silent, Jiyu Li slowly opened his mouth and said with a smile, "The imperial elixir must be elixir. It is of high quality." The next moment, on the void square, which had just been silent for a moment, there was a deafening cry. When Jiyu Li reaffirmed the answer in his heart, these guys could not help crying out. Therefore, we can see how terrible the attraction of imperial pill is. At the moment, Mo Zhai laughed proudly. Finally, even Jiyu Li had to admit that his Sumitan was the top grade of Chengdan. In this way, let's see how Xiao Yang can compare with him. Even if Xiao Yang's imperial robbery pill is also a success pill, but the refining speed of the pill is slower than that of Mo Zhai. The outcome is the champion of Mo Zhai. The title of the champion has been firmly nailed to Mo Zhai. At this moment, even the audience on the stand looked at Xiao Yang with regret. The newly promoted second-class herbalist who has attracted the most attention in the wild ancient city in recent months was defeated by the old herbalist after all. The imperial pill can't be refined casually. Hehe, gentlemen, since Master Mo Zhai's Sumitan has been identified, it's time to fall into the imperial robbery pill refined by the rock owl. Suddenly, when all the people were lamenting for Xiao Yang, Jiyu Li's light smile sounded again. At the same time, Xiao Yang smiled at Jiyu Li, raised his palm gently, and the green imperial robbery pill in his palm appeared in front of all the people. However, people no longer have any illusions about the imperial pill that has announced the victory or defeat. They all look at the imperial pill in Xiao Yang's hand, shake their heads and sigh with regret, as if Xiao Yang's imperial pill failed to refine. Not only that, many people are already moving in the stands at the moment, flying back to the wild ancient city below. For them, this medicine refining teachers' meeting is over. Since the champion has been determined, there is no need to continue watching it. Moreover, in the eyes of the public at the moment, Mojai's Sumiton is several times better than Xiao Yang's imperial robbery pill, both in the quality of the pill and in the time spent refining the pill. At present, the result of the herbalist meeting has become a foregone conclusion. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether to see or smell the imperial robbery pill. Compared with those outsiders' low voice sighs, Xiao Yang looked calm, with an indifferent smile at the corners of his mouth, and looked at Jiyu Li. They looked at each other, but in the end they both smiled tacitly and didn't say much. Xiao Yang handed the imperial robbery pill to Jiyu Li without paying any attention, but turned his eyes to Mojai. He wanted to see it, after hearing the result, what kind of expression would Mojai show on his face. Seeing Xiao Yang's faint smile, Mojai couldn't help wrinkling his eyebrows. He couldn't help muttering to himself that the rock owl in front of him had reached this point. How could he smile? Still, he just forced himself to smile and wanted to be more sad. However, the more Mojai looked at the mysterious smile on Xiao Yang's face, the more uneasy he felt. It seemed that he had missed something on Xiao Yang. However, when Mojai wanted to explore again, Yang Bing, who stood aside, suddenly put his momentum out, and his ice-blue eyes stared at Xiao Yang. The terrible smell of the top strong man in the later period of the 8-star-and-a-half emperor rushed at Xiao Yang. The cold killing intention was not concealed at all. It was like an invisible sword, and instantly cut off towards the center of Xiao Yang's eyebrows. Such a sudden scene also made Jiyu Li and others on the other side fail to respond in time. When they returned to their senses, it was too late. The terrible breath pierced Xiao Yang's eyebrows. If Xiao Yang could not escape, even if he could survive, it would be difficult for the seriously injured to live for a long time. However, when Jiyu Li and others suddenly changed their faces, Xiao Yang was as calm as Jiyu Jing. Although the breath rushed at him was really terrible, it was too naive to hurt him with this. When the breath was coming, Xiao Yang thought in his heart, and then a black light flashed in front of him. At the same time, a huge palm suddenly clenched its fist, and one fist blew up at the terrible breath. Boom! With a loud bang, the whole void square was slightly shocked at this moment. At the place of the explosion, the hard void square also opened terrible cracks through the whole square. Yang Bing saw this, and his ice-blue eyes were also slightly frozen. Unexpectedly, the puppet beside Xiao Yang would be so strong. The strength of this cross-level battle is no weaker than its master. Only with the strength of the 6-star-and-a-half emperor, he was able to compete with him, the strong man at the peak of the late 8-star-and-a-half emperor. We can see the strength of the puppet. Elder Yang Bing, it's too much for you to do so. Yang Xiao is also the chief herbalist of our guild. You did it in front of so many people of our herbalist guild, but you really didn't pay attention to our herbalist guild. Jiyu Li gave a cold hum. Even if the elders behind him looked at Yang Bing, the latter was shocked by these eyes. Knowing that it was not time to tear his face, they immediately gave a cold hum and said faintly, "You don't have to scare me. If he hadn't threatened Mojai first, I wouldn't bother to do it. However, at the moment, it seems that your chief pharmacist has several brushes in his hand." When the voice fell, Yang Bing couldn't help glancing at the North King standing in front of Xiao Yang again. The strength of this puppet was that even he was a little afraid in his heart, and Jiyu Li turned his eyes back to the imperial robbery pill in his hand after he snorted again. A moment later, when Guli carefully took the imperial robbery pill from the medicine refining master again, the smile that had not been completely displayed on the old face finally slowly emerged at this moment. At this time, behind him, all the medicine refining masters of the Medicine Refining Association except Red Phosphorus, as well as some foreign free medicine refining judges, all looked dignified. In their hearts, they even couldn't believe that the quality of the pill that had just flowed in their hands had reached that level. At the same time, when these medicine refining masters looked at Mojai, they couldn't help showing a look of pity. Of course, more was the expression of Schadenfreude. It's really rare for them to have compassion for Mojai, a unscrupulous guy. After a long time, in front of the rest of the audience who will not leave, Jiyu Li raised the Emperor Robbery pill in his hand with a bright smile, glanced at Mojai with a suspicious look on his face, and after a few breaths, Jiyu Li slowly said word by word. Imperial pill, Imperial Robbery pill. Superior. Imperial pill. Emperor Pin Quan Dan. As soon as the 4 words came out, the audience was surprised. All the people present seemed to have heard something incredible at the moment, and some of them looked a little stunned when the Emperor product Quan Dan came, as if they could not respond in time because of this sentence, but when they returned to their senses, their thoughts were paying attention to the words in Jiu Li's words after the 4 words Emperor Pin Quan Dan. His face immediately showed an incredible look of shock like others. On the void, the audience who wanted to leave, and some semi-imperialist strongmen, after hearing the words from Jiu Li's mouth, all hurried back and looked shocked and projected their eyes on Jiu Li in the field, as if to confirm the words they had just heard. For a moment, just above the void square that gradually became empty because of Mojai's Sumiton, now it was filled with surging heads again. In the middle of the square, Mojai also looked at Jiu Li with an unbelievable face. The words just spit out in Jiu Li's mouth were like a bolt from the blue for him. Even Mojai himself couldn't believe it. Rock Owl, it was able to refine the imperial product Quan Dan. In Mojai's opinion, no matter what, it is absolutely impossible. Emperor Pin Quan Dan, don't say Mojai. I'm afraid any second-class herbalist present is not sure that he can refine it. For this reason, when Mojai heard that the imperial robbery pill refined by Xiao Yang was actually the whole imperial pill, he was greatly shocked. At the same time, he also had a deep suspicion on his face. He had no doubt that the imperial pill made by Xiao Yang was a real imperial pill. After all, the people present didn't know the imperial pill, but what made Mojai doubt was whether Xiao Yang's imperial pill was really the imperial pill. The concept of imperial pill Quan Dan has disappeared from the ancient wild city for too long, so that everyone almost forgot it. After all, in recent thousands of years, the herbalist in the ancient wild city has the highest grade, but only the second-class herbalist, and the success rate of imperial pill has always been very low. Therefore, when facing imperial pill, everyone is the first to forget it reading is a pill, but no matter how high it is, it will never think about it. Now, once the imperial product Quan Dan is released, it is bound to attract wind and rain all over the city. After this time, the name of Rock Owl will also be famous in the southwest border. In the middle of the square, Mojai's lips trembled and looked at Jiu Li. To be exact, it was the imperial robbery pill in Jiu Li's hand. At the moment, this thin body like firewood trembled slightly. Mojai's heart kept repeating those 4 words. Di Pin Quan Dan. Di Pin Quan Dan. Di Pin Quan Dan. Jiu Li also looked at Mojai's pale face with a sneer. He looked at each other with red phosphorus. He felt very happy. The big stone in his heart was finally smashed at the moment. At this conference, they finally guarded their painstaking guild. Of course, they also knew that all this was thanks to Xiao Yang. Without him, the last winner today would not be them. With a moving figure, Jiu Li held the imperial robbery pill refined by Xiao Yang in his hand. In the eyes of thousands of people, Jiu Li slowly flew over the sky. His turbid old eyes swept through the audience, and finally fell on Xiao Yang below. Jiu Li finally showed an indisputable smile on his face. Then he faced the audience, raised the imperial robbery pill in his hand and laughed loudly. Imperial pill, imperial robbery pill. After being identified by all the refining masters on our bench, it is unanimously determined as imperial pill. Wow dash. Another affirmation made everyone in the field send out a thunderous cheering sound at this moment, and everyone looked at Jiu Li with a fanatical face at this moment. Emperor Pin Quan Dan. It's really Emperor Pin Quan Dan. This has not been seen for hundreds of years. Hearing the warm cheers of the audience, Jiu Li also burst into a burst of laughter, but then he gently pressed the void with his palm to appease everyone in the audience. When everyone looked at himself, Jiu Li smiled again and said, "Hee, this Medicine Refining Masters Congress is really the most popular one I've seen in so many years. Not only 2 imperial pills have appeared in succession, but most importantly, one of them is the imperial whole pill. Jiu Li, I'm proud of the prosperity of this congress. At the same time, I officially announce that the champion of this Medicine Refining Masters Congress is... Haha. Emperor's pill? Now the pill is in your hand, and behind you are all the people of your Medicine Refining Guild. Naturally, you say so, but I don't believe it. With this boy, you can also refine Emperor's pill. Who knows if you took this Emperor's pill from the Medicine Refining Guild? On the void, the voice in Guli's mouth hasn't fallen yet, but Mojai below suddenly burst into laughter. His words also made the people on the void square whisper. Although Mojai's words are not pleasant to hear, they are not unreasonable. When Mojai saw this scene, he couldn't help laughing and continued to speak laughing. Oh, but that's right. In order to keep his position in the guild, it's understandable to do so. However, you also said that now it's the Medicine Refining Masters Congress. During the Congress, anyone who transgresses will be sentenced to abstain. It seems that our president Jiu Li wants to guard himself. Mojai, have you said enough? As the referee of the conference, I make a fair judgment. I don't care to do that kind of despicable villain. With a cold hum, Jiu Li waved his big sleeve on the spot, refuted Mojai's words, then looked at Mojai coldly, stared at the latter, and continued to say, "What's more, Yang Xiaoyou's medicine refining skills are superb, and the imperial product Quandan can be refined. Why should I use more means? On the contrary, it's you Mojai, who is only thinking about how to win the championship. You use all kinds of means on the field. I just didn't expect that God doesn't want to help you. In the end, it's still nothing. In the final analysis, it's just your strength. Why deceive yourself and others?" Mojai's face suddenly turned red with scorn and sarcasm, and his heart was very angry with these words. After a good moment, he was very angry and smiled. Ha ha, good, Jiu Li, I didn't expect you to be sharp teeth and sharp mouth. It's really good. But I don't believe it. With this boy, I can refine the imperial product Quandan? Hehe, after talking so much, you just want to personally check the quality of my pill, right? Mojai's voice fell. Xiao Yang, who had been looking at Mojai all the time, smiled faintly. A sneer arose from the corners of his mouth. He smiled and asked. Mojai snorted coldly again when he heard the speech, but he didn't refute it. His eyes were cold and glanced at Xiao Yang. Mojai once again focused his eyes on Jiu Li. What is the quality of this pill? It doesn't count if you say it alone. I must also identify it. At that time, I will be convinced even if I lose. Mojai's words were awe-inspiring, but when he spoke, there was a faint light flashing through his eyes. Jiu Li smiled coldly when he heard Mojai's words. With his understanding of Mojai, he naturally wouldn't believe these words. It's impossible to give him the imperial robbery pill in his hand. Otherwise, once given to him, he can't say what's wrong with the pill in his hand. At that time, it's really unreasonable to say, that's no good. According to the rules of the conference, the pill refined by the herbalist can't be identified by the contestants. I think you'd better not spend more time. President Jiu Li, since the contestants can't, it's not against the rules if they are identified by others. This video will end here.